A lot of people are talking about homesteading, and I think that's really great. But I have sort of hesitated to classify myself as a homesteader because for our family, we've really been focusing on building the skills and the wisdom that our great-grandmothers knew and used every day of life. It's not necessarily out of fear. I don't feel like we are preppers by any stretch of the imagination, and we're not chasing trends. We really just want to build a life that our great-grandmothers would recognize. And so if that's where you're at too, then this video is for you. And if you're new here, I'm Amanda, and on this channel, I really love to share things just like this: old-fashioned homemaking, faith-filled encouragement, and food from scratch. Today, I want to talk to you about 5 very simple things that anyone, anywhere can do that would technically be considered homesteading skills, but you don't have to have land, you don't have to have an animal. You can simply do these from your apartment, and that is the beauty of this. So let's get right into it with skill number 1, cooking from scratch. Now, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you may have seen one titled "Don't Like to Cook from Scratch, Me Either." I really don't naturally love to cook. It's just not one of my favorite things to do, but I can tell you the transformation in my family's really our health and well-being when I did. So this happened 16 years ago now, is whenever I really started focusing on making the majority of our food. Now the really amazing thing that happened is, even though I am not a natural cook, I don't love it, it's not something that I would gravitate to for fun, it became so exciting to see what I could replace in our pantry with homemade. For instance, crackers. When I learned that I could make homemade copycat versions of cheese crackers and the little wheat crackers and like a saltine cracker, it was a game changer. I was no longer reliant upon the store, but upon my pantry, and so everything changed. I actually started with bread. I remember getting my first bread machine from a Goodwill, and I used it. I was so scared, to tell you the truth. I was scared to death to make a loaf of bread. But the bread machine and a very easy bread machine recipe really got me through, and I used that recipe and that old bread machine for probably 3 years. And then as I got a little more confident, of course, I started trying harder, more challenging recipes. I opted for the stand mixer and not the bread machine, and then of course now I just do it by hand. Cooking from scratch, I would say, is number 1. I think you can do this regardless of where you live. You don't have to have anything really special. It's very simple. Really such a huge blessing to your family if you start to cook more from scratch. And then the second one is growing anything that you consume. It can be the tiniest thing. An herb. Rosemary grows really nicely in a pot. If you have a balcony, you can grow herbs. If you have a balcony, you can grow tomatoes. There are so many really great vegetables that you can grow in a pot. I feel like sometimes when we think about growing food, we automatically assume that we either have to have super impressive raised bed gardens or 2 acres full of beautifully plowed rich dirt. But there are so many things that you can grow in buckets or pots. For instance, one year I had a couple of potatoes and they were sprouting little eyes on them. I dumped them in some dirt in a 5-gallon bucket with some holes in the bottom. Those potatoes grew better than the potatoes growing in the garden. So I encourage you to get on Pinterest or watch a YouTube video, and you would be amazed at how much food you can grow really fairly minimally just by using pots or buckets or the little bit of space that you do have. So then thirdly is preserving food. And I think for the most part, myself included, when I hear preserving food, I automatically think canning, and it is a wonderful way to preserve food, but freezing is also such a great option. Freeze drying is a little more of an expensive option, but very popular these days. A dehydrator, this is another thing that I see quite often at Goodwill. You can find surprisingly good quality dehydrators at a Goodwill for fairly inexpensive. So if you're new to this and you don't want to invest a whole lot, There are so many ways that you can preserve food that don't require expensive equipment or canning knowledge. But if you want to learn that, I think that is fantastic. You don't have to start with a canner. If canners intimidate you, you can make a small batch of strawberry freezer jam very easily. It doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a lot of skill, it doesn't take really any special equipment. It's a very, very simple project to get started with. Homesteading skill that I feel like you can learn regardless of where you are or your skill level is mending and sort of repairing things. Mending, I will be honest with you, is something that I have worked on off and on for the last several years. Again, I'm not a super seamstress. I can do enough to fix a hem, put on a button, or what have you. But as far as being a good seamstress, not quite there yet. Mending, sewing, repairing, those are simple things you can learn regardless of where you're at. There are, again, a plethora of YouTube videos on just about anything. If you are curious about repairing something, or mending, sewing a button, sewing a straight line, hand stitching, you name it, there is definitely a YouTube video for it. The fifth thing that I will share with you is building a pantry. Now, it kind of goes along with number one, and if you're cooking from scratch, you really do learn the things that your family uses the most and what you should stock up on and what you just don't need. For myself, I know that if a recipe is complicated or requires a list of ingredients that I don't have on hand normally, I'm probably never going to make it. We're very simple people. We like very simple food, and that is such a blessing for me because I don't love to cook, like I've said before. So building a pantry is so important. I have an article actually on my website about how to build a vintage-inspired pantry, basically full of all of the staples great-grandmother would have had in her own pantry. Just like any of these, it can be done regardless if you live in an 1800s farmhouse like we do on some land with some animals out in the back, or you live in an apartment in the middle of a busy, bustling city. You can do any of these things regardless of your skill level, regardless of where you live, regardless of your neighbors or your history or whatever. You can do this. But if you're new to old-fashioned skills and you're so excited you want to learn, can I just encourage you to start small? Pick one or two things to focus on and move forward from there. You don't have to do it all at once, and a lot of times what happens when we try is burnout. We try too many new things at one time and it usually doesn't go so super. So I would encourage you to pick one or two things, start small, stick with it until you kind of get into the rhythm and the routine of it, and I promise you that you can do this. I promise you can do it. I believe it honors the Lord when we care for our homes and our families, and that is what I want to pass on to my children, and I want them to be able to pass on to their children. I want to make a difference so that I can be the great-grandmother that grandchildren aspire to be like. That is my heart in all of this, and I really just appreciate you spending some time with me today. I always look forward to sitting down and having a little chat with you, and if you like encouragement like this and these types of faith-filled, old-fashioned skills videos, I would love to have you subscribe. I'd like you to stick around. I'd like to spend some more time with you and get to know you a bit. But for right now, that's all from me, and I will see you in the next video.